The packed stadium pulses with energy. A roaring crowd waves their arms, neon lights flicker and phones glow as fans record every second. The air is thick with excitement. Suddenly, the lights dim. The audience erupts into deafening cheers as the Dylan Drake Company, a Texas-based rock band, takes the stage. Dylan Drake, gripping the mic, steps forward, basking in the moment. New York, you're looking beautiful tonight. Last time I saw this many people cheering, my pants were falling down and everyone was hoping to catch a glimpse of that viral Kamala Harris tattoo on my butt. The crowd bursts into laughter and cheers. And now I see a guy over there with the same tattoo on his face. Well, that's ruined it for me. Looks like I'll be going back for a laser removal tomorrow. The audience roars louder, shaking the stadium. Dylan pauses, taking a deep breath. Seriously, though, this is the final stop on our world tour. I'd call it bittersweet, but if I'm being honest, mostly sweet. Finally get to sleep in my own bed again. The band begins to play. And before we get started, I want to dedicate this next song to my fiancée, Jessica. Babe, I love you, but let's be real, I'm coming home for my Netflix password. The crowd surges, screaming. A blistering guitar riff slices through the noise. This song is called Baby, I'm Coming Home. The band explodes into the opening chords of a heartfelt rock ballad. The music reverberating through the massive venue. A sleek, black car idles quietly across the street from a grand 6-bedroom mansion. The lights of the mansion shine in the distance, but the air around the car feels heavy. Inside the car, Dylan sits in the back seat, staring blankly ahead, lost in thought. His phone rests in his hand, his thumb hesitating over the screen. He looks broken, his face shadowed by the dim light. Something weighs on him, something devastating. He presses play on a voice message. Lillian's voice crackles through the phone speaker. I can't keep doing this to you, Dylan. You're a good man, and I can't watch this woman play you again. She's been cheating on you, Dylan. It's been going on for months. Dylan closes his eyes, the words hitting him like a sledgehammer. His grip tightens on the phone as Lillian continues. My son's college tuition. Jessica promised to pay it, so I stayed quiet. But I can't anymore. There is no amount of money that can justify this. There are 55 photos of Jim Leeson, yes, your best friend, sneaking into your house when he thought I was asleep. Dylan exhales, his breath shaky, his body tense. I'm sorry, Dylan. I've lied to you, and I'll never forgive myself. Please, get rid of this before it destroys you. The message ends. The silence inside the car is deafening. Dylan stares at the mansion, eyes hollow. A knock on the car window breaks the quiet. Dylan lowers the window, and standing outside is Lillian Garcia, his 36-year-old housekeeper. She looks distraught, guilt etched across her face. You should have told me sooner, Lillian. Lillian's eyes fill with tears, voice trembling. I know. I'll never forgive myself for not telling you sooner. All I can do is apologize from the bottom of my heart. I hope we can move forward with kindness and forgiveness. Dylan drops his head against the steering wheel, his shoulders slumping under the weight of it all. Is she in there? Yes, I told her you were selling the house. She's been trying to reach you, but I didn't give her your new number. Dylan nods, his eyes still fixed ahead, empty. Thank you. A heavy pause hangs between them. You need to get away, Dylan. Clear your head. The press is going to start running stories in 2 days. And without an NDA from Jessica, she'll sell her side to the tabloids. You will need space. Dylan exhales deeply, rubbing his forehead. Where do I even go? Your private investigator found your brother. He's in New Jersey. with his wife and kids. Dylan's jaw tightens, memories flashing in his eyes. I can't deal with that yet. It might be what you need. A fresh start. Dylan looks out the window, considering her words. He'll turn me away. You don't know that. You won't know until you try. You can't let fear stop you. A long pause. Dylan leans back in his seat, closing his eyes for a moment. Is Sergio in college yet? Lillian smiles faintly, despite the tension. He left 2 days ago. I was going to stay here until Jessica's out, but if you want me around, I'd love to stay on. College tuition's going to kill me. Dylan chuckles softly, the smallest crack in his otherwise serious demeanor. All right, pack your essentials. I'm heading to New Jersey tomorrow. Once Jessica's gone, join me there. Lillian's eyes well with tears, a mixed relief and gratitude. So I still have a job? You're a good soul, Lillian. I know that, despite everything. Lillian leans in, kissing his cheek, overwhelmed. I'll get packing. See you in New Jersey. She steps back from the car. Dylan's driver starts the engine and slowly pulls away, car disappearing down the quiet street as Lillian watches from the sidewalk, silhouetted by the glow of the street lamp. Dylan walks briskly through a bustling airport terminal. Dragging his suitcase behind him, he wears a hoodie and keeps his head down, but the murmur of excitement around him grows. A flash, then another. A photographer clicks his camera. Soon a small swarm of paparazzi starts snapping more photos, inching closer to Dylan. He reaches into his jacket, pulls out a pair of sunglasses, slips them on, trying to keep his cool. Just then, a voice cuts through the chaos. When a reporter knocked me down with their car, the last thing I expected them to say was, "Hey, Dan, did you know you have a brother and that he's famous? He's a famous musician from the Dylan Hendrix Experience." Dylan stops, turns around, and removes his sunglasses. He locks eyes with Dan, his half-brother. "How'd you know I'd be here?" Dan grins and shrugs, stepping closer. "My wife, April. She's been tracking your flight online. I'd say it's creepy, but I'm sure you heard worse." So, our dad and mom had an affair 35 years ago when he was touring with the Eagles. Dan chuckles, shaking his head in disbelief. Right? We should probably sell the rights to this story to Hallmark. They share a laugh, breaking the tension. Good to see you, buddy. Dylan reaches out and they exchange a quick, brotherly hug. Need a place to crash? More flashes as the paparazzi swarm closer, snapping more photos. Dylan turns his back to them, trying to ignore the growing crowd. Yeah, but maybe we shouldn't be discussing it in front of these jerks. A nearby photographer chimes in, grinning. Hey, we have feelings. Without missing a beat, Dan shoots back. Yeah, but you're not human. Another photographer pipes up. Well, how do you know? Dylan smirks, leaning closer to Dan. 2 words. Britney Spears. Dan laughs and takes Dylan's suitcase, steering him away from the horde. The cameras keep clicking, but the brothers move swiftly towards the exit. Dan and Dylan sit in the car as it cruises down a busy street. Dylan watches the city pass by through the window, the noise of the airport fading behind them. Dan drives one hand, turning to Dylan occasionally, clearly deep in thought. Suddenly, Dan slaps his forehead. Oh, shoot, crap. I completely forgot. Dylan turns his head, curious. What is it? My wife's mother's staying with us. Her house is infested with termites. Being fumigated right now, we got no room left at the house. We might need to find another place. Dan relaxes back in his seat, shaking his head with a small smile. Don't worry about it. My housekeeper booked an Airbnb for me. I'm all set. Dan lets out a sigh of relief, glancing at Dylan. Oh, good. I was worried for a second. Dylan gives him a small smile, but his mood shifts slightly. Besides, I don't really need to be a third wheel in anyone's house right now. Dan hesitates, his voice softening. Yeah, I heard about your fiancée. One of the reporters told me a story about, it's about to break soon. I'm sorry, man, it's gonna be tough. Dylan looks out the window again, his expression hardening. Tough as having a 13-pound baby. This is a storm in a teacup. Dan laughs despite the seriousness of the situation. How long were you two together? Dylan lets out a heavy sigh, the weight of his words sinking in. 5 years, on and off. But the last year I thought we'd finally made it. Turns out she was screwing my best friend the whole time. Dan shakes his head, glancing over with sympathy. Gotta admit, hearing a famous rock star have relationship issues makes me feel better about my marriage. Dylan rolls his eyes but smirks. Glad I could help. Dan reaches over and gives Dylan a reassuring pat on the shoulder. You'll be all right, kid. Dylan stares out the window, nodding slightly, his mind elsewhere. Let's hope so. The car drives off into the distance, disappearing into the city as they head toward their next destination. The door swings open and Dylan steps inside, dragging his luggage behind him. The apartment is quiet, but the weight of the exhaustion clings to him. He drops his bags by the door and takes a deep breath. Finally home. His phone buzzes. He glances down and sees Lillian's name flash across the screen. He answers, his tone tired but curious. I got your text message. What now? Your ex is threatening to set the house on fire unless she talks to you. Dylan rolls his eyes, his frustration barely contained. We'll call the police, get them to intervene. I did, but she's chained herself to your bed. Dylan lets out a heavy sigh, rubbing his temples. I'm not talking to her. Hang on. Muffled voices come to the line, and then a new voice. Man, we're going to have to take her away. She's a wanted criminal in Arizona. She was sentenced to 6 years for armed robbery and skipped bail. Did you hear that? Every bit of it. Can you talk to an estate agent, get the house on the market by tonight, and jump on a plane and be here by morning? I'll try, but it might be tough. Lillian, I really need you here. A pause. Then Lillian sighs. All right. I'll book the next flight out of here. In the background, police officers begin leading Jessica away. Chains rattle as cuffs are unfastened. Okay, they just uncuffed her from the bed, and they're leading her away. Dylan leans against the wall, relief washing over him. Thank God. Talk to you soon. He hangs up, tossing his phone on the couch. Just as he exhales, there's a rustling sound behind him. He turns to see Dan standing there holding 2 bags of McDonald's, an eyebrow raised. So, who's Lillian? Dylan gives a slight smirk. Oh yeah, that's classified. Dan steps closer, clearly amused. Oh, so your rebound chick? Dylan shakes his head, not in the mood for Dan's banter. She's a friend, that's all. Dan's grin widens. Oh, wipe that grin off of your face. Dan sets the McDonald's down, leaning on the counter. I'm just going to tell you what my wife always tells me. There's no such thing as being friends with a woman. You're either with her, she's family, or you don't like her kind. And I'm thinking the latter doesn't fit. Dan rolls his eyes, grabbing a McDonald's fry from the bag. I'm ignoring you. Dan laughs, shaking his head. Probably a good idea. I got a ton of questions. Dylan waves him off, grabbing a burger and taking a bite. Lead up and then we'll talk. Dan throws a playful jab his way.
And after that, join me downstairs. There's a bar on the corner, and I want to introduce you to my family.
Dylan gives a half-hearted thumbs up, his mouth full of food.
Yay.
Dan pats him on the back.
You need good people around you, brother. Trust me.
Dylan nods, his smirk fading into something more sincere. Yeah, I do. The cozy pub is alive with chatter and soft music. At a round table, Vinny, Veronica, April, and Dan sit, casually sipping their drinks, waiting for Dylan to return from the bar with a tray of pints.
I still can't believe my husband has a brother. And I can't believe my daughter suddenly has a brother-in-law. We're all in shock.
Well, I know Bon Jovi, so there's that.
Veronica rolls her eyes with a smirk.
He tells everyone that.
Dylan returns, carefully balancing a tray of drinks. Vinny raises his glass with a grin.
Dylan, this is my husband of 3 months, Vinny.
I don't tell everyone that. Fine, I do, so sue me.
Dylan hands out the drink, shaking his head.
Are you going back on tour anytime soon?
Before Dylan can answer, Dan cuts in.
No, he's waiting for his special friend to arrive.
As in, a hooker?
Dylan shoots him a sharp look.
Housekeeper, and no, she's not my special friend.
But she's leaving Colorado to come stay as your housekeeper? You sure it's not a little odd?
Dylan rubs the back of his neck, looking uncomfortable.
It's not weird, all right? She's just helping me out.
Yeah, sure. You're in love with her.
Dylan abruptly stands up, irritated.
All right, I'm out of here.
He turns to leave, but April quickly grabs his arm, pulling him back into his seat.
Hey, no, we're sorry. We won't say another thing. I promise.
Dan and April exchange a mischievous glance across the table.
So, how many kids do you want with her?
Dylan gives him a death stare, then pushes his chair back and stands again.
Bye.
He strides out of the pub, leaving the group in stunned silence for a moment.
Dylan, buddy, we're kidding. Dylan.
April slaps Dan's arm, shaking her head.
You couldn't behave for 2 seconds, could you? Us. You're the one who suggested he was in love with Lillian and brought it up in front of everyone. Yeah, well, we're all to blame for this one.
Vinny downs his drink and stands.
I'll go make sure he gets to his apartment without fans mobbing him.
Veronica gives him a knowing look.
You just want to grab a photo with him in case he skips town.
Vinny shrugs, grinning.
I hate that you know me this well.
Veronica laughs and Vinny heads out after Dylan as the others chuckle, shaking their heads at the situation. Dylan is fast asleep on the couch, the TV still flickering in the background. A sudden, loud banging on the door jolts him awake. He groggily sits up, rubbing his eyes, trying to shake off fatigue. The banging continues.
All right, I'm coming.
He stumbles to the door and swings it open. Vinny stands on the other side, looking determined. Without waiting for an invitation, he steps inside.
I came to say my piece and then I'll leave, I promise.
Dylan sighs, leaning against the doorframe, exhausted.
Look, I'm really tired, Vinny.
Vinny puts a hand up, signaling for just a moment.
Just hear me out, and then I'm gone.
Dylan crosses his arms, reluctantly nodding.
Love hit you in the balls, and then it had the nerve to rip out your heart. But guess what? It didn't succeed. You're still here, still standing, as Elton John would say.
Dylan raises an eyebrow, still not fully engaged.
And that means what exactly?
Vinny takes a deep breath, stepping closer to Dylan.
It means you've got a chance, man. A chance to reinvent your future. Your destiny is right in front of you. You can either lay on that bed and wallow in self-pity, or you can stand tall and say, I want my life back. I want a future. I want love.
Dylan's expression softens slightly, though he still looks drained. Well, okay. Vinny leans in, intensity in his voice.
A lot of people never hear this. And the few that do, they ignore it. But you're alive, Dylan. Stop overthinking it. Stop beating yourself up. Get out of this funk and take your shot at life. You won't ever look back once you take that first step. You trust me on that.
A moment of silence passes as Dylan looks down, processing Vinny's words. Vinny gives him a reassuring nod and heads for the door.
All right, I'll leave you to it.
As Vinny opens the door to leave, Lillian appears in the hallway, her suitcase in hand. She has a warm, tired smile on her face.
You're a sight for sore eyes.
Vinny gives Dylan one last knowing glance before slipping out. Dylan and Lillian lock eyes, a moment of unspoken understanding between them. Without hesitation, Dylan steps forward and pulls her into a kiss. It's tender, full of emotions he's been holding back so long. Lillian drops her luggage, kissing him back, the weight of the past few weeks lifting off both of them. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Amazing Dylan Hendrix. All the characters were voiced by me, Emerson Peary. The show was written, produced, and edited by Joao Nasita. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with family and friends and make sure to subscribe to That Love Podcast wherever you listen. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day wherever you are.